record
There we go.
so that we have recording and I can actually take the post-it down now.
Take the post-it down.
Yeah. So we can kind of get into that. I thought of you, Sam, last night. Spent hours with headphones on mastering a song last night. So the whole creative juices were flowing last night. The other Dolan, that other guy,
That other guy, Dolan and Dave, over there in the
that
corner.
guy. Yeah,
I'd
those
like to
two
meet
guys.
that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll arrange that to happen. We'll do
Now,
that.
see, this is where actually
Oh,
we get the
I
harps
got
out.
your. Yeah, I was going to say I
Yeah,
should reach
get
in
yours.
my
Get yours. You got to get your.
get my harmonica out. You've got noise isolation on there, so it won't let you make noise with it. But yes,
There you go.
I got it right here in my
Don't worry
bag.
about it.
Got my harp right here. Hang on. Probably more. No, actually, yeah, I do right here. Got my G harp right here in my bag, right there.
Yeah, okay, your Honer.
Yep, got it. All right.
Okay.
We completely digress.
Yes, yeah, the boy talking about going down a rabbit hole.
I know. Goodness gracious. So you want to introduce what are we going to do today, Blaine?
Today
What's
is
today?
primarily, yeah, we're going to set you up for your 30-day plan. Today's about, bundling everything, putting a bow on it and saying, now what? Yeah, go do this. Go do this. So we got a bit of a review that's involved. We want to
Yeah.
make some time for Q&A, make sure that anything that's outstanding in terms of observations, questions, that sort of thing, have an opportunity to be addressed. And just literally take a look at kind of what's next. How do you actually put this into action, and what kind of support can you expect from Dolan and myself? Yeah, in that regard, because we're not going to just cut you loose.
No. Well, that's not the intention. And just for the sake of consistency, I have slides.
Waha.
I got slides. I'm ready. I got
I'm
slides.
shocked.
So I know what the heck. Let me share my screen. And we're going to start with, actually, I'll share my screen. I have that, and you can see that.
I can see that. Defining leadership. Quick
There we
preview.
go. I went backwards from there. Kind of like, well, let's not start there, maybe. Let me get everybody up on my screen so everybody's here. Got you right over my shoulder so I can see everybody too.
Yep.
Um, I was thinking about it this morning just as I was kind of going through the deck, and and some documents and things we're going to share with you here as the morning goes on. Kind of the integrated steps that we took, kind of going through this week. And we always start with kind of that discovering your why part, which is we in day one we spent time talking about. And Elaine, you missed this part, but you'll catch up on it as we head into all of it. But it is, we talked about what inspires you, motivates you, core values, vision. Day two was the test, right? Here's a test. You get to go and assess yourself, dimensions of leadership, areas, and one thing Blaine has been saying that, and I've been repeating it as well, is there's no right or wrong. It is the muscle you're exercising. So and the great thing is we end up exercising different muscles, right, over time because we forget about things. So that was an opportunity to do that. We talked about leading through change, which was all about resilience. Yesterday we did integrating leadership. And Armin, thank you for highly respected, man, to go actually go watch the video, do the stuff. That's that says a lot. So thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. So that's been the flow for the week. And what we want to do is take these four pieces today, and then we're going to pull them together. So we're going to actually talk through them. So we're going to talk through ACCT again, but not from a point of Blaine and Dolan talking at you, but more have conversation about each of these.
Mhm.
So as we get into defining leadership, for the sake of what the models that we talked about, the leadership universe, the four pillars, we're going to actually just spend time kind of diving through those. Then we're going to give you a 9-pound PDF with a 30-day plan, and we'll crack that open a little bit so you can see that. We'll talk a little bit about yesterday's homework, kind of heading into that, and that's our plan. That's what we're going to do. So
That's where we're heading. Yep.
there we go.
Dive.
There it is, right there.
Influencing others in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. Um, just a side note here. This is completely not related to this, but next week, Dolan and I do a regular Thursday show
Yep.
on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, but it's a live. We're going to be taking this definition and spending an hour on it. So yeah, that takes place at noon on LinkedIn, on both Dolan's channel and my channel. So just to let you know that that's something that if you want a little bit deeper dive in this, we're going to spend a full hour on it. But we're not going to do a full hour right now. Influencing.
What?
Ah, that's true. Influencing. The whole idea on this was with today's, there are 5 generations in the workforce today. 5 generations. How do
Yeah.
you actually cause movement? Because you've got different constituencies listening through different filters. So what we want to be able to do is take command and control out of the conversation to a significant degree because people don't respond well to carrots and sticks. They really don't long term because all of that is around motivation. Sustainable movement has to do with inspiration. And that's where influencing comes into play. Um, One of the ways that you can think about this whole notion of influencing is how do people feel about themselves when they're in your presence? How do people feel about themselves when they're in your presence? Do they feel empowered or do they feel denigrated? Do they feel as if they've got permission or do they feel as if they have to hold back? How do they feel about themselves when they're in your presence? And this is all about influencing. Before you get in the room, the story they've made up in their mind about who you are has already entered the room. And they're dealing with the story of you before you ever open your mouth. And if there's a significant misalignment between your making requests of them, such as I want you to be more fully engaged, I trust you, and your presence, the story, is you don't suffer fools well, move fast, and don't push back. I mean, that may be the story that has been generated over the years, and that's what's actually influencing how they're beginning to engage. So they don't give you what you're asking for; they give you what they perceive you're willing to accept, and that's the key on influencing. What's the perception that people have? And you can manage that. Most people do not curate the story of who they are in their organization. It just gets developed organically, and then they have to deal with it. When we're working with this with clients, uh, this is an area that we really pay some attention to. What's the story that you need to curate that is congruent with where you want to move your people in your organization? Is that story serving you or not? Okay. So, again, on Thursday, we're going to, do a much deeper dive on that, but that's what the notion of influencing is, influencing others. So if you're doing this well, they lean into you. Yeah. Yeah. There's an openness that allows for connection. Co-creation, ownership transfers. It's not just my idea any longer. Now we've got emotional engagement because they feel that there's a there for them. Yeah. It's meaningful for me, personally meaningful for me. Then in personal meaning translates into emotional engagement. And that's what co-creations is, actually, is producing. The coordinated movement piece comes out of co-creation because people now have an opinion about how things actually look. Yeah, what's going on with this? Tactically, how do we move? That in this dance. So that coordinated movement is also co-created. And part of what goes on with co-creation in this particular definition is a recognition that conflict is part of the dance. Yeah. And I want to be able to know how to use conflict effectively. Okay. Because it can actually surface some very interesting ideas and creativity and all of that stuff begins to, percolate up to the surface. And it's all in service to a worthy ideal. Yeah. Not a vision, not a goal, not an objective, but a worthy ideal, and that is a personal way of identifying what's in it for me. If we get this, if we do this, if we achieve this, what does it make possible? What do I get to have, do, or be that I wouldn't get to have, do, or be if this wasn't in place or if we weren't moving in this direction? And that changes over time. Yeah, as people, grow in the workforce, as they grow in position, that worthy ideal. I remember I, when we built out our company,
Mhm.
I had an office in Helsinki, Finland, and we were doing a lot of work with Nokia was the original anchor client in that area. But we ended up doing a lot of work with a number of different Finnish firms. My Finnish partner, when I met him, he was not married. And so the worthy ideal, was, one thing when we actually looked at, okay, how do we actually work together? What are we going to be doing with this? He got married and then he had kids. His worthy ideal changed. And we would check in on an annual basis, and I had a whole template around how we did this. And I used this. We had offices in 4 countries, and I used this template with each one of my equity partners. Yeah, kind of what's going on here? What's the worthy ideal that we say we're striving for? We know what the objective is, the vision is, but what's the worthy ideal that's in place? And over time, we would check in on an annual basis with this. Yeah, has anything significantly changed? And we would use this template to just kind of, frame the conversation. So that worthy ideal, you keep coming back to that. You keep coming back to it. So that's the definition: influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. And then the idea of, sustainable success, developing the capacity to continuously start over. That's what all of this makes possible. Ta-da!
Ta-da! I'll just
For
say
the sake
ditto.
of what? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
For the sake of what? No, but when we think about yesterday, we stopped just a little bit to talk about this definition, defining leadership. And one of the benefits, so you've heard us say this a couple of times throughout the week, which clarity creates confidence. And one of the things that as you and it, this is Blaine and Dolan's definition of leadership. It is ours. There is yours, right? That is appropriate for the culture and for the environment that you're in. But when you're using this, it's an opportunity not only to understand your bumper rails as the leader of your team, like Elaine, you're leading 2 different teams, two disparately different flows of work, right? Very very different, disparate, different work flows of work. And Sam, you're building a team, building a company, and Armin, you're just trying to get stuff done because you're living in the middle of constant change, minute by minute, hour by hour. So as you're going through that, it gives you that ability to leverage this in the body of your organization to create context and continuity. So it's a consistent place for you to ground back to and ask, what are you trying to influence? And lead that person who's leading others, because you can't lead everybody in your organization. I had this conversation yesterday with a team that's about 100 people wide, and we were talking about we've shifted from developing the leadership team to developing those that you lead so they can lead their people. And that's an opportunity to use that as that consistent conversation through the organization that drives clarity all the way down to that person driving the forklift in the warehouse. There you go.
There you go.
There we go. We're the ideal.
We're the ideal. For the sake of what? So I don't think we need to go, deeply into this, but it is different than your vision, your goals.
Yeah.
So the worthy ideal, you ask, for the sake of what is this important? For the sake of what? I mean, I know that there's a business case for it. Okay, that's going to be very obvious. But for the sake of what do we want to do this? Yeah, and that kind of goes back to leaders create possibilities or illuminate possibilities.
Mhm.
And when that possibility is recognized, then people have an opportunity to engage with it. possibility into probability. The way you move possibility into probability is to have this for the sake of what clearly identified. And you can't tell somebody what it is. You have to ask them, okay? For the sake of what would this be important for you? Okay. That now becomes the probability that they're truing to. Okay. And it may not, if they were to articulate it, it may not in any way, shape, or form sound like the vision that you're saying is important. But they've embedded in that vision is a personal for the sake of what? So you end up with, if you got a 10-person team as an example here, you may have 10 different for the sakes of what
Mm.
that have been identified, which is just fine because that's where emotional engagement comes into play. And they all funnel up to the realization of that vision. But the vision is not the for the sake of what. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's kind of how this goes. It's your worthy ideal.
So here's a question. I'm going to ask a question.
Please.
Since we're talking about for the sake of what, since for the sake of what is one of the things I think a leader can get hung up on is when they're working through for the sake of what's with their team, is that is is creating clarity. Because if I have 10 people on the team and I have 10 for the sake of what's, how do I not get lost in 10 for the sake of what's? How do I maintain clarity on rolling it towards the vision? So I'll pose that back to you, Dr. Bartlett. Out of the blue, I'll just pose a question, and we
Yeah.
could do that today.
Yeah, the answer to that, and I've actually had that question come up with a team that I was working with a couple of years ago.
I know, shameless plug. There you go.
Shameless plug, yeah. Part of it has to do with the whole notion of transparency. What's important to you? If we're going to be working together, what's important to you? I know what's important to me, but if you can articulate what's important to you, now I've got a way to make sure that you're having access to that as we co-create this objective or this vision out here. But if I don't know what's important to you, yeah, it's easy for me to make assumptions about, well, why in the hell are you doing that? That does not make any sense.
Yep.
Okay. And it's that thing. We've got a labyrinth, a meditation labyrinth on the property here. And what's fascinating to me is when, and I used to bring teams up here and have them walk the labyrinth. And if you've ever been on a labyrinth, you're just walking around this circle, but it goes in all kinds of different directions. And it ends up, it's not about discovering the path. The path is already set. But you've got team members going in opposite directions, but the goal is in the center. The goal has not changed, and they're both moving toward the goal. There are just different places on the path. So it's a beautiful way to illustrate that just because somebody seems to be going in a different direction than you does not necessarily mean that they are going in a different direction than you. The outcome is still the outcome, but they've got a for the sake of what that is, organizing their behavior in a little bit different fashion. If you understand what it is, then you can understand their behavior and not be, grabbed by it or thrown off balance by it. That's kind of how that begins to work.
Awesome. Awesome. Kind of reminds me of a story about a sensei that you knew at one point in time.
Yeah, at one point in time,
At
yes,
one
off
point in time.
balance.
Yeah, on balance. So we're talk briefly about the model. We've spent a lot of time in these, at least almost 45 minutes in these over the last 4 days. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah,
do a
just,
little bit of that.
and this will take us into the ACT model, which was where
Yep.
actually I think we want to spend a little bit more time. But
Yep.
this universe model, leadership universe, I said this yesterday, leaders work in a system. Yeah. Whether it's a family system or an organizational system or a community system, it's a system. And there's various parts to it. And we want to get people, leaders cause movement, directional. That's where vision comes in, the why. Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through the why, what, and how. Why provides the vision behind the leadership's actions. So
Mhm.
this isn't the for the sake of what. It's just kind of here's where we're going. We're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That's the vision. Great. Nobody's talked about for the sake of what or anything else at this point, but that's kind of the directional thrust of what we're going to be, putting resources in play for. The what outlines the strategic priorities. How do we actually use the resources that we have available to us? What seems to be the best way to organize that? Then the how is, okay, once we've landed on a strategic direction, tactically, how do we go about setting, doing that? And that's where you end up setting goals and objectives, that are in service of that vision, the realization of that vision. Now, that being said, almost every vision in an organizational context is set with a reference to the past. So this is why we end up getting incremental increases. Okay, let's just do this a little bit better. And this is where best practices come into the conversation, all of that kind of stuff. So a 10% increase. Yeah, we can do 10%. We know how to do that. We did that last year. So let's just do it again. What we're looking at is how do you create exponential shifts, dramatic moves, breakthroughs in organizational performance and in team performance. And that's where mindset and spirit come into play. And if you put this, and I mentioned this yesterday as a metaphor, if this is a universe, okay, I think the statistic says something like 96% of our physical universe is made up of something we can't see. It's called dark matter, but it actually controls everything that materially that we can see. The material pieces in the organizational leadership universe are the resources that we have access to. Our conversation structures, our work processes and procedures, goals, objectives, resources, equipment, material, all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that we work with materially. It's all controlled by the dark matter, which is the mindset. And I mentioned this on Monday when we first started. 92% of most adults' behavior by the time they're 30 years of age is generated out of their mindset. It's subconscious drivers that is out of awareness that were developed over our lifetimes. Okay, that's the dark matter that we're looking at. So we want to be able to explore that, because if we can explore that, we literally change the nature of the organization. We change what's possible, what's seen as possible. And that exploration can bear some incredible fruit if you're willing to take the time and invest the discipline necessary to actually facilitate an exploration. And this is really where the ACT model comes into play very strongly. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're working with dark matter, if you're working with this mindset, you open, and this is where imagination, we don't have the thread in there, but imagination lives at the threshold between mindset and spirit. You start working with mindsets, you open the gateway of imagination. And imagination is about creativity and innovation. What if? What could be? Without reference to the past. Without reference to the past. It's what do we, if we had a magic wand and waved it, what would it be? What could we do? All of that kind of stuff starts to come into play here. So that's how all of this begins to work. And if you're looking for innovation and creativity, you've got to go through mindset to get it. Otherwise, you're just going to have iterative objectives that are not
Yeah.
particularly creative or new. So there.
Boom.
mic, mic drop.
Boom.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the next. So let's talk about the four pillars. So one of the things I'm going to give you today as a part of this, matter of fact, there's a couple of things. One thing we didn't talk to Blaine about this morning is would also like to drop in the PDF of compassionate capitalism today, because I think that's very
Yep.
much in alignment with what we're
That's a
talking
good
about.
idea.
But I'll also include a PDF of a short synopsis of the four pillars, yet another 9-pound PDF. So we're going to send you home with three 9-pound PDFs today, a 30-day plan and 2 books. But the important thing about this, and we've talked about this week in several different manners and context around it, is when we think of mindset, imagination, spirit, and the context from a leadership is, so what do you do with it? What things should you be looking for? What symptoms can be indicators inside of your organization, inside of your life, that those areas are off, and they're based on these four pillars, and these are practical experiences from working inside of organizations for, I don't know, 40 years or so. But always the first pillar is trust and autonomy. And the only thing I'll lean in on trust and autonomy is really just two things. We as leaders, I think a lot of times have challenges developing self-trust. There's that little thing that sits in the back of our mind with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And a lot of it could be called a FOPO, fear of other people's opinions, imposter syndrome. There is a there is that, and on that very first day we did the exercise around the our second day we did the model, the ACCT model. We're going to get into that quickly. Kind of on what areas are you focused on? Where do you feel you're strong? And I love hearing the comments. I think it was pretty much across the board with everybody saying as you went through that exercise, you kind of had these moments where it's like, yeah, I thought I was good at that, but I'm actually probably not as good as I thought I was, which means we work on the muscle. It's not good or bad. So trust is that ability to start is that's put our oxygen mask on first. Trust is founded with trusting ourselves. Autonomy is the permission to try, for you to give people that permission and demonstrate that through trust. Communication, real enforces it. It creates that enabling component, that permission through transparency, which is transparency is another word for transparency is vulnerability. Another word for transparency is that for the set that we're the ideal. It is that we're focused on that. Then growth and innovation. Growth is always continuous learning, that we encourage people by doing that, that we don't critique, we coach. It's very different two steps in leadership, critiquing, coaching. They serve purposes, but we're spending most of our time inside of the coaching domain. And then systems of accountability. Gosh, we did that was yesterday. After we did work with everybody yesterday, we did an hour stand up on just systems of accountability and what that means inside of an organization. But systems of accountability is it's not Trello. Again, I see this all the time, Excel. It is that commitment that we make to and with each other, that we're accountable and we take ownership. And then we have things that keep trust intact, which are systems, Trello, the accountability systems, so that we know we're on the path. Those things maintain trust, but trust is bounded, accountability is bounded in commitment. So that's the four pillars at a lightning pace today.
Right. And it's the four pillars of, I mean, you think of pillars, they support something, and it supports the exploration of mindset. That's
Yeah,
essentially what these do. They
the
support
whole
the
component.
exploration of mindset.
Hmm.
And
Ready?
that moves us into the ACT model, which is actually a roadmap for how you navigate the mindset minefield, because it is a minefield. Stuff blows up real quick if you're not
Mm.
aware of it here. And before I forget, before I jump into this, I just put in the chat a link, and this will, go to my company website. But
Mm.
the splash page that comes up on there will give you access to the Compassionate Capitalism book. So it's a free PDF copy of the book. That was an international bestseller, and it begins to outline some of the stuff that we're talking about here.
I,
So
I also have the
absolutely.
PD. I also have the PDF. I'm going to drop it in chat today.
Oh, you do have the PDF. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but
awesome.
wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
But
Good.
wait,
Okay.
but wait.
But
Exactly.
wait, no, no,
Operators
don't
are
tell me.
standing by. So
Okay. Act. Leaders act. They cause movement. Then and they cause movement by the way they act. Okay. And just I love acronyms. Awareness, foundation of leadership awareness. It's also Daniel Goleman talks about emotional intelligence. I mean, he built a whole career on this notion of emotional intelligence, and the foundational element in emotional intelligence is awareness, self-awareness, and also awareness of others. Goldman's research suggests that fully 90%, 88, 85 to 90% of a leader's effectiveness has more to do with their emotional intelligence than anything else. And emotional intelligence is rooted in awareness. So awareness, the value of awareness is it illuminates choices I've never seen before, things I've never noticed before that I can now access. And that's where it gets to be interesting, because just noticing that I have different choices available to me doesn't mean I'm going to access them, to work with them, to take them on. That's where the mindset becomes kind of the barrier. I'm not the kind of person who would take advantage of that. I'm not the kind of person who did or would or could, leverage that choice. It's a function of identity,
Mhm.
which is where context begins to come into play. Now, awareness is both personal, but it's also organizationally uh, uh, positioned. Your team can become aware of things that they've never noticed before if you're working with this well, where they see opportunities to engage differently, where they can see opportunities to bring something to the table that they never thought that they could bring before. I mean, all of that stuff starts to come. But what limits the effectiveness of awareness is meaning. You know, that's where context becomes really, really crucial. Context shapes how leaders interpret situations and makes decisions. That's what context, everybody, everything is contextual. Everything is contextual. And another word for context here has to do with relational. Everything is relational.
Yeah.
And I illustrated this right at the very beginning here when I moved my bed into the kitchen. Okay. The bed doesn't fit in the kitchen because the context of kitchen doesn't allow for that bed meaningfully to exist in that space. That's what we're working with here. So, how you shape context has to do with your communication effectiveness. Most people are accidental communicators. And I mean that very literally. Yeah, kids, if you watch, kids between the ages of about 2 to 6, 2 to 4, 5, they're continuously experimenting with words. They're continuously experimenting with behaviors. What they're doing is they're developing a map in their minds about what's meaningful. Yeah, what does this mean if I did this? If I say that, if I make this sound, if I make that move, what's the meaning that is generated in the environment? Because that's how we learn. And by the time we get to about 8 or 9 years of age, we've learned vocabulary, but that's, and then we start conflating communication with words. It's not the same thing. Influencing state of being. I'm communicating with my state of being. I'm influencing the moment I walk in. I influence with the story of who I am in people's minds. And that story is a contextual frame. So when I talk about curating a story, I'm really talking about mastering the communication process in a non-linguistic domain, not just the words I use, because most people are pretty clear about the words they want to say about something, but they have not a clue about how to master the communication process so that meaning drops in, common meaning. Oh, that's what that means. Now we can work with that. When you have common meaning in place, and that's the whole focus around communication mastery, is now it makes possible commitment, not compliance. Commitment is a big deal. Compliance, you got to keep going back to check on it. Commitment, if people are committed, it will run.
You
So
got to manage it.
got them, yeah. So there's a flow to this, and all of this rests on a foundation of trust. And trust, everything in an organization is relational. I have a relationship with my chair. I mean, I truly do. I was working with a CEO of a yoga sportswear company a number of years ago, and they're actually quite successful now. But at the time, they were a startup, and as a management team was basically comprised of women. The CEO is somebody that I'd known for some time. I'd worked with her in another environment, but she had four direct reports that were the marketing, sales, operational, production managers. And we were talking about this notion of relationship, and I literally made this offhand comment that to the degree that people, all these relationships in the organization work well, you've got a pretty good shot at being successful. If the relationships aren't working well, things go off the rails. And I said, for example, people have relationships with their chairs. And if the chair isn't comfortable, their energy's, distracted. And one of them just sat bolt upright and said, "I hate my chair." And I went, "Well, okay, thank you for sharing." And the other two said, "I'm not real comfortable in my chair either. As a matter of fact, my work table, I don't like my work table." Now they had, when they started, bought secondhand furniture, and they just, were pretty simply, kind of getting along with it. And they were, revenue, positive now. They were, they had free cash flow. So she said, "Look, guys, go get some new chairs. Yeah, just go get new chairs." I came back about 3 months later for a check-in, and the place was just buzzing. I mean, it was just humming. And I said to Kira, I said, the CEO, I said, what have you been doing? Something is different here. And she said, "We're not doing anything different. It's just, we're just kind of doing what we've always done." I said, "No, something is different. The energy is different." And she scratched her head for a little bit and she said, "Well, we got new chairs for everybody. We got new chairs for everybody. We got, we asked people if they wanted a new desk or so that relationship. Now, the tang uh, what's the word I want here? The intangibles that were in play here had to do with trust. They began to feel as if she had their back. She had their well-being in mind. "Go get some new chairs. I want you to be comfortable here because if you're comfortable, you're going to be more productive. There's no question about that. Energy follows attention. And if my attention is grabbed by an uncomfortable chair, I'm not going to be fully present." So she trusted, and she was building trust through her action. She was inviting feedback. "Tell me what you think. Tell me what you need. I can do this. We can make this happen." Those are small little pieces. So when we're looking at this ACT model, this trust thing is not this huge, ginormous sort of a thing. It's
No.
built on small little pieces where people begin to get a sense of, it's safe around here. I can raise my voice. I will be heard. I may not get what I'm asking for, but at least I know I was acknowledged and it was listened to. I mean, all of those things, small little increments, all of a sudden we got a foundation of trust. And they're still cooking with gas. I mean, they're really doing some good things right now. And as we add new people, trust becomes something that we want to pay attention to on the front end. So this ACT model is basically a structure through which you can actually assess how elegant is my leadership being? How elegant is it? Yeah. Do we, awareness, context, meaning, communication, how did we create that? Where people listen to? Are they evidencing commitment? And is there a foundation of trust where we hit the road, the speed bumps, and it's not a signal that anything's broken? People don't run to the wood piles because we hit a speed bump. They come to the table and say, "What do we do here? How are we going to work this?" Okay, without finger pointing and blame. That's how this ACT model actually plays out.
I'm sorry, I was chuckling when got to communication mastery, not to completely digress the value of what you talked about today,
Mhm.
but I had a 4-year-old granddaughter this week teach me communication mastery. She schooled me because
I'll bet she did.
we were playing and the lesson was I was going to tell her daddy that I love him and I'm proud of him, but he has boogies on his pants because she's into boogies for some reason these days. And
4-year-old.
she stopped dead cold in her tracks, looked at me and said, "Papa, you need to say it with a loud and clear voice. And everything that you said was good, all the way up to the boogie part. Don't talk about boogies." So I was schooled on communication mastery, which made me, there was a lesson in leadership there
Yep.
around and thinking through that context of what we were talking about. So I had to smile. I remembered that. So to share that
That's
with
cute. I love
my
that.
little 4-year-old Grant Rosie, teaching for 71-year-old Papa communication mastery in the side yard. So this is, this week I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. This is a we've gone through 5 concepts, five different leadership framework concepts in 4 days. We've gone through the definition of leadership. We've gone through we're the ideal for the sake of what. We've gone through leadership, actually more. We've gone through the leadership universe. We've gone through the
Four
four
pillars.
pillars. We've gone through the ACCCT model, the ACT model, and then we've applied it to resilience and change and done worksheets and all those. So that's a lot of I'll use a highly technical term since we're engineers, Sam. Stuff. A lot of stuff, right? That's a
Works.
technical term. So I wanted to just before we get into, and dropping PDFs and talking about what to do, how to go apply this, just to kind of get your thought, your thinking. What are you taking away from these days? What are you taking away from these concepts? And it's a lot. It'll take time to digest it, which is why we put together a 30-day plan. But kind of where are you kind of with all of this stuff? Sam, you're over here, by the way, so I'm pointing at you as I'm saying that. So I'm curious. So just curious about what you're taking away, your ideas, your thoughts, your concepts, and I'll stop talking for a moment.
What do you have questions for? What's landed?
This
That
is
sort of
yeah.
stuff.
It's our feedback, just Q&A session here for a few minutes.
Sam.
I can go first. For me,
Yeah.
and all this stuff is invaluable, but I realize how important a clean slate is, and that's the awareness part where everything's okay until conflict happens, and then I have knee-jerk reactions. I have knee-jerk emotions. I have knee-jerk responses, and the importance of being aware of that and dealing with that, and to be an effective leader, you really, that awareness part for me resonates where I have to deal with that and work hard at that. And then the second thing, I don't know why this phrase comes up, but after this, I don't know, this kind of resonated this morning, was you have to love people first before what they can do for you or what they can get you, no matter what. Like, love people first. And I mean that in a sense, and care for people first, whether they're employees or whoever they are on the street, before what they can do for you. And I think if I can master that, that's what's coming to me from, or one of the things that's coming to me from this week.
Great.
Good. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's good stuff. Armin or Elaine?
Or Brian?
Brian?
Yeah.
Brian.
I'm
Go ahead,
happy
Armin.
to go next. Lots of good stuff to chew on here. Especially from the recent conversation on ACT. A lot of my work is just doing, and this is kind of putting my antenna up and increasing my awareness. Awareness, and also understanding that it's all practice. I learned that somewhere in some Buddhist article. It's all about the practicing.
Yep.
There's no there's really no end result. It's a process and practice. I'm not going to achieve global domination in the game of Risk, as an analogy for what I'm doing here.
That's a great game, by
My
the way.
purpose with work, it's practicing and process, and that's what's landed with me.
Great.
Yeah, and just more generically and globally here, if you can get your team to practice, if those of you that are working with teams, get your team to practice some of this stuff. This is meant to be shared collectively, because leaders don't have titles. Leaders have simply the ability to cause movement, which by definition means everybody in your system, everybody in your organization is a leader, because they all have the ability to cause movement. They can't not cause movement. So once they begin to recognize that they are actually leading things in their organization, absent the titles of director or whatever it might be, you open the door for them to learn how to be more effective as a leader. So this, now you've got allies that are speaking the same kind of language. They're paying attention to the same kinds of things as they're causing movement in their lives. And that's, that's an incredible gift to give people, is to, be able to, make it possible for them to learn how to lead their life more effectively while they're at work and at home.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
thank you.
difference
Maybe
between leadership and managing. Big difference.
Yep, big difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
okay. I will go
James?
next.
Yeah, Brian.
Yes. Yes, thank you. I have learned over this time that we communicate with other people in order to produce a result. Before, my experience was communication for the sake of listening and understanding, and not necessarily to cause people to produce a result. Now I am intentional in my communication. So that has been very strong for me in this training. And then to also understand the value of a yes is inherently based on the ability to say no. So sometimes I haven't put a lot of attention and in understanding that, okay, if someone says yes, I do not necessarily care about their ability to say no. So I was looking at things on the first side and on the other side. And of course, the fact that routine cultivates imagination. So every time I'm listening, that's why I keep coming back. This is my third time, but certain things come out stronger. And now, like in the previous training, the thing that came out most is the black swan event, how to turn an event that is supposed to destroy you into something that you can cultivate and create an opportunity out of. So I really want to appreciate you for the fact that you do not give up, you do not get discouraged by the number of people available, but you just give your full. In fact, I wanted to ask you a personal question. And how do you benefit from this continuous training? Not that I want to look at a financial opportunity or whatever, but to me, it is so fulfilling and satisfying to see that it does not matter the amount of people that are on this call or training. You give your full energy and your full attention, and you keep giving away what other people charge to definitely provide such a beautiful, productive training. Yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, James.
Well, for me, I was interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and actually they just posted the interview, but I was asked, what's my purpose? Yeah. And there was a whole conversation around how people discover purpose or not in their lives. And they asked me literally, what's your purpose in life? And and it was very obvious to me. Yeah, my purpose in life is to teach. That's what my purpose in life is. I am most fulfilled, most creative, most alive when I'm teaching. And the forum makes no difference to me. So for me, working with Dolan on this, and we talked about this up front. I mean, let's just do this because for both of us, we love to teach. And I'm not going to speak for him. He can actually answer this on his own. But I love to teach, and what comes back to me is comments like yours, and Brian and Elaine. I'm going to hear from you in just a little bit here, Armin, and Toda-san. I've known Toda-san for a number of years now, and she keeps coming back to different things. Although the language is a little bit difficult for her, but there's value. My life has got. I've got an intrinsic gift that needs to be shared if I'm going to be alive, to feel alive. So to me, this is just a way to keep myself viable. Not relevant, but viable, and hopefully relevant too. But yeah, this vitality, yeah, I look forward to these. Yeah, I do. I mean, and I've got enough money. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I need to do this to, yeah, to pay rent. That's not why I do this at all. Yeah, the whole notion of being a center of distribution, is really important to me. Not a center of accumulation, a center of distribution. Nature thrives on that model. Everything in nature serves as a center of distribution. Nothing in nature survives or lives or thrives if it's solely focused on being a center of accumulation. It all has to give out at some point in time. So I organize my life as a way for me to be a center of distribution, wherever I'm at, and whether I'm distributing a smile or a tip or a class or whatever it is, a center of distribution.
There you go.
Dolan?
For me,
Yeah.
similarly, and I'll go short because it'll only take me an hour or so to talk about this topic. So, but you know what? There's a point. I love to. I believe in repetition, and there's no greater repetition than teaching it. It's so Brian to James, Mr. Ntwatwa is in Uganda, leads an organization called the Incredible Youth Foundation, which teaches leadership to youth all over Uganda, which is Uganda's an emerging nation in Africa, and there's a lot of things that are going on there. And one of the things, and it's the same thing you probably experience through your work, right? Working with youth, it's the law of reciprocity. There's not always, compensation. Compensation comes in a lot of different ways. And I do this. The only other short lesson for me is I'm a musician. So I've played the audience of 10,000 and I've played the audiences of 2. And when you play full out.
Yep.
Or don't show up. And that's just, so I have fun, and I love getting to say, it's so much fun to see Elaine here. Elaine and I have a mutual background together, and then to get to know people, get to know Sam and Armin and Todo-san, and these are relationships. This is not about teaching you leadership in our head. This is about how do we build relationships that help you build relationships that help them build relationships, and go from there. So, great question. Great question. It's funny. I was laughing with Blaine this morning. I was referred to as an international expert on leadership this morning, and on this call with these folks in the UK. They went, "Well, you're at this," and I kind of went. And in my mind, I'm thinking, "You got the right guy."
Yeah, who are you talking about? Who said I was?
You got the right guy.
Let me have a conversation with them.
Anyway, so I was talking about you guys. So Elaine, these 5 things, and then I want to get into the PDF because we're coming up to the top of the hour, and it is Friday, and everybody should be off the rest of this day. Armin, you should be done after this. So,
I came into this with a completely different mindset. I was going to look to the knowledge that you both would share about leadership, that kind of thing. And then I started, after the day 2, when I finally got on, I started realizing about my one business, oh, I'm really leading people. And all the things that we've talked about, like context, because I work with people across the world and in all different ages. And it's really important. But I always put the person first. So Sam, like kind of what you were talking about, I always put the person first. And I've done that, especially as I've gotten older. It's not about the goal or what are we going to achieve. It's about the person. And for me, it's how can I help them grow? So when you were talking a little while ago about, letting people develop their own leadership, I'm like, yes. And the best analogy I can give is I love to garden. And to garden, you have to nurture things. And if you don't nurture them, they don't grow. And let me tell you, my immediate team in Ink Defense that I've nurtured, I'm like, okay, I'm getting out of the way. They come back at me with ideas. But when I think about my first employee, she was like timid to say anything. And I'm like, no, talk to me. Talk to me. And all of what you've shared here has been amazing. I have the defining leadership, and for the sake of what I call it, the futsal, up on my screen because It literally yesterday helped me get my foot salve for my revised coaching business. And another thing I want to say, it's not retirement. It's always the next chapter in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always the next chapter.
Yep.
People say that R word to me and I get, I don't like
Oh,
that.
retirement is, that's,
It's our next chapter.
yeah,
It's our
it's
next
our
chapter.
next chapter. Yeah.
So,
I got to
anyhow,
keep alive, keep moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's me.
Got things to do. That's great. That's
Got
good.
things to do. Yeah.
Got things to
Good.
do. All right. So I'm going to hit,
Okay.
thank you. I'm going to hit go on a PDF. This is oh goodness, I added some things to it. So it turned it into a 35 megabyte PDF.
Oh, good Lord.
I can, if that becomes unwieldy, I can compress that. I can throw it into Adobe and compress this thing down.
Yes.
I probably should do that, but I
You
added
could
some
probably
things into
do
this
that.
PDF. Goodness gracious. Yeah, rather than make everybody sit through that now, I will create a compressed version and email the compressed version, but it's a 35 megabyte PDF. In this PDF, I'm gonna share my screen. Please tell me that I have shared the PDF.
Yep.
There you go. Perfect. Rather than just my flags. The PDF is structured in it, so it starts with on page 2, it says, "Welcome to day 5." And then it goes after that back to day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and then all of the slides that we've gone through today, which was what made it large because I updated it with our current deck from today for some changes that we made. But inside of the PDF, as you work through this PDF, Blaine and I took the concepts that we've talked about and broke it down into some activities. These are activities you can apply, and everybody's in different places in their business, but these are activities you can apply. So in week 1, defining purpose and building awareness. Again, back to that topic of awareness. Make sure that day 1, day 2, write or redefine your personal leadership why statement, align your purpose, reflect on your why. Day 3, 4, conduct a leadership assessment. Make sure you go back and do that again. Focusing on emotional intelligence, vision, operational execution. Identify a dimension where you want to work on that muscle. Day 5 through 7, share your leadership purpose with your team. Now go tell people and begin to align the organization. And you can go through all of these, but these are suggested steps with areas where you can keep some notes on how to take the concepts, the 5 concepts that we talked about today or throughout the few days, and then begin to move them into action so that you can leverage these pieces and you can do it in, these aren't the order. When Blaine and I would put this together, this is not rote. If you change the sequence, you can change the sequence by all means. But it's an opportunity to think through, now what do I do? And we've all been through conferences, things that we've done, in other organizations with other people. And our intention really is to give you something that gives you the ability to begin to take action to move them forward.
Yep.
And that's the
Good.
intention behind this PDF.
Now, just speaking of the PDF, I just went ahead and optimized it. I just put it up in there. It is now
Oh, you're awesome.
5 megabytes instead of 35 megabytes.
I could have kept talking. There you go. 5 megabytes.
Yeah. So that's going to be a whole lot easier to download.
Yeah. Then a 35 mega. I told you it was 9-pound PDF.
Yeah.
Started there.
Hey, we got your back, guys. We got your
I
back.
know. And I'm gonna add 2 other things into the chat, and please grab these.
Oh,
One is a copy of Compassionate Capitalism. These are optimized, by the way.
Yes, they
So
are.
these are smaller, and then a copy of a explanation of the 4 pillars called Lead with Confidence. These are some things that can help you through that. But that's really the intention, is to make sure that we go away. So how do we support you? A couple of things. There's the immediate support is go do this.
Go do that.
Go do the 30-day plan. Give it a whack, and hold yourself accountable. There's an old Bob Proctor thing. It's a David Meltzer thing too, by the way. If you haven't followed David's a wonderful guy too.
Yeah.
But Bob Proctor talks about this, used to tell us all the time, if you get to day 10 and you don't do it, it's day 0 the next day. It's not day 11. You
Yep,
gotta
yep,
start
you,
over.
you start over.
Start over. So hold yourself accountable to that. I recently went through that this week because I'm back to doing Science of Getting Rich, my 4, 7, 11, and 14. I'm
Yep.
starting over on my 90 days. I got 3 days in and went, yeah, I messed that up. So it's an opportunity to do that. The other components are, the other pieces are good reference material. And do we want to, this is, we had promised we would get to this day and tell you about what we do together.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll make an offer for you to join us, or if it's great, if it's not, great. You want to chat a little bit about Leadership Mindset Mastermind? And I
Yeah,
don't think we need slides for this.
don't need a slide. No, June 2nd, we're starting the 5th year of a leadership mindset mastermind that Dolan and I facilitate. We meet every week, and I'll just kind of, there we go. You can use
There we
this URL to go to a landing page. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with it, but if you want to find out more about it, there's a wait list that we're putting, that we put together. So you can click on that.
Yeah.
It'll take you to a landing page, give you a full explanation of what the program structure is. The intent is to be able to, over a course of a year, it's a year-long program. We meet every week for an hour a week, and then there are subgroups, smaller mastermind groups that actually facilitate and serve as listening partners. They're basically your mastermind group itself is broken into about this size. So we just want to invite you to, think about, leveraging the whole thing. This book over my shoulder here, when we're talking about the ACCCT model, the ACT model, this is part of the curriculum for the mastermind. 52 weekly practices to transform your leadership mindset. So we take these 52 lessons and we actually unbundle them over the course of an entire year. And that's very practical. It's organized around your organization, your objectives, your for the sake of what, and how do you actually leverage that and transform it from possibility into a probability where it actually ends up at the end of the 52 weeks, usually far earlier than that, a tangible result. So the invitation, feel free to sign up, no obligation at all on the wait list. It just basically schedules a call with either Dolan or myself, and we can just kind of bounce some ideas around and see if it's a fit for you. That's it. 1 year, 52 weeks, and I come into focus when we do that.
There you go. It's funny. I heard you say that. I'm thinking 52 weeks. That's a lot of Blaine and Dolan. That's
a
more
lot of
than
Blaine and
anybody
Dolan.
should ever have to bear, I think, sometimes.
But we
That's
have a lot of
of
fun with it, and actually we do.
We do have
it's
fun.
all virtual, with the exception of at least one, sometimes two. In the fight, this is the 5th year we've done this. We've done one, sometimes two, in-person meetings.
Right.
Yeah, where we'll just get together. Last year we had people come up to my place on the island. We've got 11 acres up here, and we just sat for 2 days and really did a deep dive on communication mastery, and what does that mean? And we actually brought in an equine instructor, and we worked with horses as a metaphor for how you communicate with energy. And I mean, it was just a fascinating experience.
Dr. Laura.
And
Yeah.
I ended up grilling some king salmon on the deck, and because we look out over the Salish Sea here, and it was just a gorgeous experience. So we'll do that at least once a year, once during the session, or the program, sometimes 2 times, depending on just kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
I
That's
have
it.
I have a question. Can we get both of your podcasts and your joint one? Can we get that all in chat or shared with us as well?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to be able to share that with others. And then when are you doing this process again, this leadership? Because I would love to recommend this to some people.
Do we have this one scheduled? I don't. It's usually about every 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think we've actually. I'll check my calendar here, but I don't think we've actually got the next one on the calendar yet.
We don't.
Okay, I'll just watch on
No.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. We're so focused. It's funny, Elaine. I was thinking about that again this morning. It's kind of like, oh yeah, crap. We got crap. Since Friday, I can say crap. Sorry. Oh yeah, crap. We got to schedule the next one because we've been focused on June 2nd coming up. Kind of that, and all of the other things that are going on around that. So there's the link to my podcast. There's Blaine. My podcast is called The Next Interview Podcast, and
And that one that you do on Thursdays, that's just live LinkedIn with both of you.
yeah, it's called Power of
live
You.
LinkedIn, yeah.
And there is a private LinkedIn group.
Yep. Let's be
Which
sure we
is,
get
I'll
that
put
in
the
there.
link into called the Power of You group. I took our Power of You, matter of fact, dawned on me yesterday to take our Power of You LinkedIn post and put it in that group. So it's actually in the group. I put it in there yesterday.
Yeah.
And then I also uploaded a PDF on decision making in there yesterday, just since we were talking about decision making and didn't get into the throes of what it's about. So I put that in there. So going forward, I'll make it a point to post the Power of Views in there as well.
And in my YouTube channel, just in terms of additional resources, the whole Power of You series is on my YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
just Blaine Bartlett, what is it? I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, mine as well, up there with my 6 subscribers.
There we go. Yeah, come on down. Yeah.
You could tell I'm clearly in this for the vanity. So there you go.
Yes, exactly.
My 6 subscribers. So cool. I think
So. Yeah, and I guess I mean just in terms of continued resources, actually check out my YouTube channel. And there's playlists on there. The Power of You certainly is one of them, but there's a number of other. I've got over, I think almost 400 videos up there, and it's all organized around leadership, compassionate capitalism, those sorts of things. So feel free to take advantage of them.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
That is a really good question, Elaine.
you would.
Sorry, this is just me details.
That's good. That's a great question.
I
don't know.
I think it's Blaine Bartlett, but
Okay.
YouTube / Blaine Bartlett or
can-
Blaine Bartlett.
I can.
Blaine Bartlett 1, I think is what it is. Because
Okay.
let's see here, youtube.com.
There you go.
Blaine, yeah, okay, that's it.
Blaine Bartlett 1. Yeah.
Blaine Bartlett
Yeah,
1, yeah.
Cool.
And mine is just Doland White. It's easy having the name Doland. It makes it very easy for stuff. So, although if you Google me, Donald Trump keeps showing up. I'm not sure how that happened, but somehow there's some weird crossover between me and Donald Trump. So there we go.
All kinds of links. Good.
All kinds of links.
Folks, feel free to reach out to us if you got any questions about anything, and would love to have literally a conversation about the mastermind. Yeah, don't be shy. If you've got some questions about it, just ping us and get on the wait list. Doland and/or I will reach out to you, and we'll set up a call, and we'll just have a conversation.
Tell you all about it. So good. That's it. From my seat, I just want to tell you all thank you.
Thank you. Thank the both of you. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Our
Yes,
pleasure.
thank you. Thanks, folks. Good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Armin. Thank you. Todo-san.
Yoroshiku ne. Arigatou gozaimashita.
ありがとうございました。
All right, everybody have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Will get posted. You'll
You
get the
too.
link.
Have a great week.
Yep, we'll send you the link to all the YouTube recordings and everything, so you got it. So
Thanks,
see everybody.
everybody.
All right, bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.